So the bar exam is finally over, and it's taken me a week to finally record and post about the bar exam and how it went. And I actually think I needed that week to just walk away from it, process it a little bit. Every time I had tried doing the video before this, I would end up either talking a little too much about the content, which we are prohibited from talking about, or I was still so stuck in that mode. And what's been interesting over the past week, and I'm sure that those of you who took the exam just recently are probably feeling the same thing, is that I have felt like over the last 3 or 4 days that my day is just empty. Like, what am I supposed to be doing? You know, and I want to grab the book and start working through it, and that, you know, it's just become so much a matter of habit and a matter of just consistently, habitually engaging in studying, that it's a little bit hard to kind of get back to real life. So I wanted to talk just a little bit, though, about how the bar exam actually went for me, how I was feeling, the emotional end of it. One of the things that I did both days, and you know, each time I walked into the room, was I engaged in a little bit of a ritual. And you've probably guessed by now, I'm a bit of a spiritual person. I don't have one specific spiritual practice that I have, but I sort of combine a ton of them together. So I had some holy oil that my mom had given me from the Shrine of St. Jude. I had some holy water that she had also given me from Medjugorje in Bosnia, which we had visited when I was 12. And I had a bunch of other, you know, sort of aromatherapy sort of things. And so I'd sort of christen myself with those things before I'd go in. And I'd sit there and I'd do as much of a meditation as I possibly could. The first day I got there, I had 45 minutes to spare by the time I got there. So I got a parking spot that I felt was far enough away from everybody and in the shade. And I sat there and I listened to a meditation as I was going through, and as I was waiting for everybody to start lining up. And I was really, really proud of myself when I walked in that very first day. I went through that visualization. I listened to it and I practiced it, and I walked in just feeling very relaxed and very calm. And I know that there's at least a couple of you that took the Karo bar exam. There's this one guy who was walking through the line as we were waiting to go in on the first day, who was just keeping everyone nice and loose and chillaxed and joking with everybody and being just genuine and friendly. And whoever that guy is, I'm so grateful for him, because he was sort of a touchstone for me throughout the whole bar exam. Like, he was very sincere and genuinely wanted everyone to pass. I don't care whether he did or not. That's just the way it felt, and that was wonderful to feel. So yeah, walking in the first day, the first half for the essays, I felt really loose and resolved. And even though I had been going through all this massive family drama, I didn't think about it. That whole morning, I got the questions and I just started working through them very methodically, very excitedly on a couple of them, because there are a few of them that I was really excited to see, and felt like, oh, I know this. And I was really happy with how I felt after the first half of the first day. I got out to my car, and just as a warning for anybody, do not check your messages when you get out to your car. Check your text messages, it's okay, as long as, you know, they're really good supportive things. If you see a text message from someone you don't like, don't look at that right away. I checked my messages because I saw a couple calls from a number I didn't know. So I'm thinking, oh good, it's a mediation client. I'm going to have a mediation to, you know, roll with right after I'm done with the bar. And it wasn't. It was more of a family drama that got me really, really worked up before I walked in for the second half for the PTs. So my advice and suggestion to all of you is that you don't check your messages if you can at all avoid it, because you just don't know what's going to be on the other end. If it's a bill collector, if it's a message that your grandmother died, I don't know what could be worse to do to yourself before you walk in. What made me mad is that the caller knew that I was taking the bar exam that day and decided to just continue making it my problem and my issue for that day, and just was completely unsympathetic. So I was really upset with him for that. I went in for the second half of the PTs, and I ended up spending a little bit longer on one PT than I did on the other, which will ultimately hurt me on the second PT that I had answered. But again, I went through knowing that here's where the law is, here's, this is the only thing I need to be looking at right now. And it was this immense sense of relief, because walking in for the second half of the first day, I realized that all of this studying, all this cramming into my head of these 16 subjects has now been whittled down to only 6 subjects that I now need to know. And on the second half of that first day, I just have to answer with what's right in front of me, with what I can read and see and analyze on my own instead. And it felt like it's an open book. So I worked through the PTs very readily and effectively. And I felt really good about myself after I was done. I wasn't feeling as good as I did about the essay portion, but walking in fully knowing that I don't have those 16 subjects weighing on my shoulders, and that I can just answer with what I know and what is provided to me. I don't remember what we did the second night, or the night between. I just know that I decided not to look at any of my notes, not to look at any of my books, not to look at anything. And I ended up going to bed at my normal time and getting up, because I was the second day started a little bit later than the first day. But on the second day, I felt like I didn't do as much preparation, getting things ready beforehand at the front door, to leave. Felt like I didn't do enough of that. And as it proved to be the case, I didn't do enough of that, because I had just picked up my coffee and I was calling my husband. I'm like, God, I forgot something. God, I just know I forgot something, and yet I don't have to bring anything today other than whatever snack I was going to have in the room with me and my little pencil sharpener. And I was just freaking out, because I was like, God, I forgot something. I got onto the highway to head up to the merchandise mart and realized I didn't have my badge. So another emergency call to my husband. We met halfway. I grabbed my badge. I was terrified that I wasn't going to be able to make it to the merchandise mart on time. And not only did I make it there on time, I then had all this time to spare. They narrowed it down to, I think, only one door that they were letting everyone into, so there was a gigantic line down by where I parked. And that was probably the time that I was the most annoyed by the other law students, because there were people there, with their notes out, going over the last minute details of constitutional law or contracts or whatever. And obviously if that works for you, that's great. For me, that just boosts my anxiety level through the roof. I mean, if I don't know it by now, I'm not going to learn it 10 minutes before I walk into the room. There's no way that I'm going to be able to learn that much information and the intricacies of how all of those things work together in that short amount of space. So I ended up getting in with a group of older test takers, people who were at least 20 years older than me, and standing with them, and we were talking about our kids, or we were talking about how often we've taken the bar exam, because we have all taken it quite often. And that was very useful for me. That last minute studying and cramming, this is not a final exam. This is the mother of all final exams. You don't cram for this. This is a slow and steady pace that you have to maintain in order to be able to pass the bar exam. Or at least so I maintain. I have not passed it yet. That was the most stressful, walking in. And midway through, there were a couple of questions that just triggered bad memories of law school or bad memories of what has been going on with my family. And so that was difficult to get through. Because we didn't do as much preparation the night before, I didn't have a lunch packed. So I ended up walking across the street to Wendy's, and I was one of the first ones to get there. Yay me. And ended up running into someone that I used to work with, who I think recognized me at some point. But it was good to know that I wasn't the only one sort of from that era of my life who was taking the bar exam this time around. That made me very happy. And on top of that, I was sitting between two people who I had graduated law school with, who were taking the exam for the third time as well. So I felt like I was in very good company. I felt like, all right, us three, we're going to do it. We're going to pass. We're going to get through this. And so I was really happy to have that much support around me, and to realize that the bar exam experience was going to be far more widespread, that I wasn't the only one. And I certainly wasn't the only one from my law school class, and I certainly wasn't the only one who had been working at the Capitol those years, and seeing all these people taking the bar exam with me who have been colleagues of mine in the past. So that was very comforting. Second half of the day, I really, really valued my breaks. I was a little bit ahead of schedule, which was very disconcerting to me. And I'm not going to speculate why, but I did take advantage of the break room that they had. They had a room that was set out, and there were people laying down in that room just relaxing. And I think that was very, very useful to me to use that room, because I was stressed out from the phone call I had gotten the day before. All of that stuff was primarily on my mind the second half of the second day. So it was a struggle to maintain my focus. And I realized, too, that one of the differences between day one and day two, day one is very active. You're typing, you're writing, you're typing, you're writing, you're typing, you're reading, you're analyzing. It's very active, and it keeps you engaged. On the second day, you're reading, you're filling in a blank. You're reading, you're filling in a bubble, and that is, it's much more passive. So it's harder for me to maintain my focus and my drive and my stamina through that than it was on the other end of things, with the active writing. So that's something that I, even though I had taken mock exams, I wasn't prepared for how disengaged my brain was going to be on the second day, especially the second half of the second day, because I think for the last 20 questions or so, I was just like, I want to be done. I just want to be done. So I couldn't even tell you what was on the exam, because my brain was it was in overdrive at that point, and it was just wanting to be done. So when I walked out of there, after the second day, the last day, I did not feel the same sense of elation and relief that I think everybody else did. And it was wonderful to see people being greeted by their family members. Some man had brought roses for his wife. There were kids who were there ready to give mom or dad a hug. And it was very touching to see just how widespread the support is for any of us who have taken this exam. I mean, I got several text messages on my way home like, so how did you do? So how do you feel? And of course, I'm not going to know until October how I did. But I wasn't feeling like it was over yet. And so it's taken me this full week to finally realize the bar exam is over. I still haven't gotten any of my books or papers or notes or anything off of my desk. I haven't organized anything to take back to Barbary or to debrief with anybody or whatever. I'm still feeling amped up for no good reason. Some of you still have to take the MPRE, which I'm going to be taking in 10 days. And you realize sort of the relief that you feel when you look at the MPRE book from Barbary, and it's tiny, tiny, tiny compared to one of your bar books, which is about that big. And so you realize just how massive that bar exam experience was. You know, it was over 16 subjects, and now you only have to take a 2-hour test on one subject. So that seems much more manageable, and I could spend the next 10 days reading that inside and out and probably be an expert in 10 days, whereas you really can't with the actual bar exam. So that's sort of where I am right now. I'm probably at some point going to do one more video before results come out, just to kind of sum up, here's the method that I worked with, here's the process that I worked with, here's what my schedule sort of looked like, so that if you found any of my suggestions helpful, you have one succinct video, succinct being me talking about this, so it might not be that succinct, but one video that just goes over, here's the process that I went through, here are the lessons that I learned. But the biggest, most valuable thing is you cannot at all replace the immense amount of support that you have from your family and your friends. It doesn't matter whether they understand how big of a deal the bar exam is. If you have that support, you can lean on that support, and I felt those voices and that energy walking in with me on the first day, and so that made me feel even better about myself. And I think ultimately that's what I really needed more than anything, was to feel good about myself walking into the bar exam. And I think that if anything makes the difference, it's going to be that. I mean, obviously, yes, I prepared, and yes, I did a lot of work, and I worked myself down to the bone on some days, and other days I had to allow myself some rest. But knowing that there were so many people behind me and so many people supporting me made the difference and helped me feel much more positive about myself and much more willing to see this as a positive experience and a rewarding experience. It's hell. I'm not going to lie to you. The bar exam is hell. But the better you can feel about yourself in the process, the easier it's going to be, and the quicker it's going to be. So, yeah, that's where I am a week later, and I'm finally going to post this. Thank you so much for watching these videos and for commenting and for providing support and cheerleading. I really appreciate that. It's been a tremendous amount of feedback that I've gotten from you guys, and I'm really glad I did these to share myself with you and this process with you. So stay tuned. There's probably going to be one more video, not probably in the next week, 2 weeks, just talking about the lessons learned, and then a video about the results once I get them. So let me know if you have any questions, and I'd be happy to answer them the best I can. And thank you again for watching and listening and cheering me on.